Even as quite a young girl, I had this absolutely firm belief that my life would end by my own hand.
You know, I was struggling with aspects of my work that other people weren't. I knew I was having real trouble.
I felt really trapped, felt very overwhelmed, felt very bored.
Having ADHD is really, really tough.
I think people don't understand that it really does exist.
I have to share my story, because at the end of the day it could save a life.
What is ADHD?
Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It's the worst named mental health disorder. We don't have a deficit of attention, we have a control of attention issue.
But essentially it's a neurological condition which affects your ability to regulate attention, your emotions and your energy.
ADHD does not come off all of a sudden. It appears or it manifests at a very early age.
When people go, everyone's a bit ADHD, well, that's like saying everyone's a bit depressed if they've got sad, right? Or everyone's bipolar because they've been sad and they've been happy in the same day. Like it's just wrong. ADHD is only diagnosed if it's having a debilitating impact on your life.
ADHD has been around forever, but it wasn't until 2000 that it was really taken seriously by medical professionals in this country. And even then, it took until 2008 for it to be recognised in adults. It's now thought around 3 to 4% of adults in the UK have ADHD. That's 1.9 million people. But many of us still don't really understand it.
From being very, very young, I was deeply unhappy. I always felt like I was an outsider. When my friend said to me that what I was experiencing sounded like it could be ADHD, my first response was, I don't have ADHD. Because I very much had this fixed idea in my head about what ADHD looked like, and it was young boys in the classroom pulling little girls' pigtails and throwing erasers around.
So I was always known as the very studious type. I always sat at the front, and that was my way of forcing myself to pay attention in class. Essentially during COVID, I lost my coping mechanisms, which was going to the gym regularly, travelling into work, socialising. I felt really trapped, felt very overwhelmed, felt very bored, and I was given antidepressants, but that didn't help at all in terms of my ability to focus.
Kim, like many other adults, felt her symptoms were unmasked in the pandemic. During this time, there was a 146% increase in the number of 30 to 34-year-old patients who were prescribed ADHD medication. And it's stereotypes like those described by Kathleen that mean thousands of people are getting diagnosed later in life, or not at all.
Hi, Henry.
Henry Shelford was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. In 2020, he founded a charity called ADHD UK.
What do you think of the consequences of people not getting diagnosed?
Having ADHD is really, really tough. We know it most starkly through the suicide figures. So we know that 1 in 10 men or boys with ADHD will at some point try and take their own life. And it's 1 in 4. 1 in 4 women or girls with ADHD will at some point try and take their own life. For the first few years of this charity, the majority of funds were from parents whose children had taken their own life.
Henry's charity says waiting times for adult assessments on the NHS can range from 12 weeks to over 10 years, depending on where you live.
I was first diagnosed in October 2022. When I first started the medication, I thought this isn't going to work, but it worked, and it kept working. I don't even know at what point during my journey with ADHD I even realised this, but at some point it just occurred to me that I was thinking about the future. I'd never had hope for the future, so I'd never planned for the future.
Medication can really make a difference for those who opt for it.
I remember taking it for the first time, and it's so hard to explain for someone who doesn't have ADHD, but it's like finally your brain quietens down. You can hear one voice, and you can hear one line of thought.
First time I took it, it was actually quite a profound impact, even though I was on a really low dose. And it was almost like my senses tuned up, like there was like a fuzz in the background, like somebody had just tuned the radio. And everything was clearer.
But pills don't solve everything. They wear off, they can have negative side effects, and there's a shortage of ADHD medication in the UK.
Once the medication wears off, you feel the difference. You get irritable, your mood's all over the place again.
Oh, it does differ for different people. You know, there are potential long-term impacts, say, for example, on your heart. One of the bigger challenges is that it wears off. And actually, like, I want to be my best for my kids when they're back from school, and I'm often not. Yeah, I do wish I didn't have to take a pill to sort of nudge normal. Like,
But the main problem is ADHD has been overlooked for far too long. And because of this, there just isn't enough data.
I remember sitting in a research ethics committee meeting in 2006, and I was called a fraud because I was doing a research on adult ADHD by a fellow consultant psychiatrist who did not believe in adult ADHD.
we don't track for how people with ADHD are doing in employment and schools, and we've seen in autism, which is tracked in schools, that has made a huge difference. Suddenly you could see the outcomes for people with autism, and you could argue successfully for research and support to change that. We need that for all the neurodiversities.
ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition, which means it's how your brain is formed. It doesn't have a cure, but even if it did, some people just say it's part of who you are.
If you could cure ADHD,
Right.
would you?
No, of course not. No, and it's not something to be cured. It's something to be understood by the individual who has it, and it adds so much diversity to thought.
So the problem with that question is a lot of people answer a different question. And the question they answer is, are you happy? And are you happy with your life? You know, I have a wonderful wife. I have 2 incredible children. I wouldn't change that for the world. But damn it, it's been hard getting here. And if I could stop it being that hard, I absolutely would. Yeah, if I could snap my fingers and not have ADHD, I would snap my fingers.
When I was younger, if you said to me, like, we know what this is and we can fix it, I would have snapped your hand off. But ADHD is completely natural. It is just a different way of thinking, and it comes with big strengths as well as weaknesses. But, you know, it's about being able to work with the brain that you have and living in a society that is more neuro-inclusive and that is more supportive of people living their lives in a way that works for them. So, no, absolutely not. We need to change the environment, not the people.